Hello, my name is Christine Kretz. I'm Vice President of Programs and Partnerships at the ISS National Lab as managed by the Center for Advancement of Science in Space. We're here today for this webinar to help you with your solicitations for the Sustainability Challenge. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Estee Lauder, who are funding this important challenge on advancement of technology for beyond plastics and sustainability. We're very happy to work with the Estee Lauder Foundation, who has a strong commitment to advancement of sustainability technologies, and they're a great pleasure for us to work with. I do want to let you know that this webinar will be recorded and will be posted online, so you're welcome to re-review it, or please share it with other people who may have questions about this submission. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our speaker today, Brian Green. Brian?
Thank you, Christine. I welcome everyone to today's webinar on the ISS National Lab Sustainability Challenge, Beyond Plastics. It's on the topic of submissions and the process of evaluating those submissions. My name is Brian Green. I'm a program manager. Before we begin, I wanted to inform you that this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the CASIS website shortly. If you have any questions, please enter them in the question box on the webinar application screen. We will have time at the conclusion of this webinar to address some of the questions. If we don't get to your question today, we will post a full list of questions and answers on the Sustainability Challenge website. With that, let's get started. This is an outline of the topics we plan to cover today. I'll begin today by reviewing a couple of highlights of last week's Sustainability Challenge webinar, but mostly we will focus on how to prepare and submit your concept summary and recorded pitch, and discuss how those submissions will be evaluated. At the previous Sustainability Challenge webinar, we provided an overview of the Sustainability Challenge, beginning with a discussion of the growing threat of plastic waste. The challenge that we, in partnership with Estee Lauder, have posed in this solicitation is to ask, how can we reimagine the design, production, use, and recovery of polymers to eliminate plastic waste in the environment and reduce the consumption of water, energy, and petrochemicals? Proposed projects should address either the virgin production of polymers through sustainable feedstocks or the end of life of polymers to be biodegraded. Proposed technologies can include, but are not limited to, 3 subtopic areas related to aiding the creation of sustainable polymers through access to space. And those areas are putting microbes to work, seeking new feedstocks, and closing the polymer loop. So our Sustainability Challenge has recently opened. The challenge comprises submittals and due dates as outlined on this slide. The challenge follows a general 2-step proposal process. Step 1, the concept phase, comprises 3 stages, each with their own requirements. Step 1A, concept summaries, are due by December 6th. Step 1B, those concepts that are accepted will be invited to submit a recorded video presentation of their pitch by February 14th. Step 1C, CASIS will schedule and hold Zoom calls with the top teams. Those calls will occur the first week of March. This will be followed by a pitch event on March 19th. We will then invite the top presentations to submit a full proposal in Step 2. Of note, applicant submissions for those steps followed by an asterisk on this slide are by CASIS invitation only. The first step, Step 1A concept submission, is the only step that does not require CASIS approval for you to submit. So with that overview, let's now examine each of these steps in some more detail, beginning with the concept submissions. In this brief 2 to 3 page concept summary, you will identify your research question, how project success will be measured, and why the ISS is necessary for your experiment. You will also need to describe how your experiment will work operationally. This includes describing the spaceflight experiment, things like the hardware, likely implementation partner, and experimental requirements. Also, describe any complementary ground-based work that you will be performing. Be sure to note if your project requires multiple flights to the station. If it does require multiple flights, provide us an estimate of and justification for the projected number of flights. Lastly, the concept form seeks input for our compliance evaluation to determine whether you are an eligible applicant. The challenge is open to any sized U.S. company, organization, or academic program. On the form, we ask applicants to identify the quote U.S. person status of the institution, principal investigator, and co-PIs. And an important reminder, be sure to use the concept template provided as part of the Step 1A download from the challenge website. You will submit your concepts through the upload link on the Sustainability Challenge webpage. Concepts must be submitted by the end of day, December 6th. During the evaluation of concepts, we assess each project's operational feasibility, scientific and technical scope, and the anticipated commercial and economic merit. On or before December 17th, concepts receiving the highest ratings will be invited to submit a recorded video pitch and presentation slides, which will be due February 14th. These invitations will include instructions to upload presentations and slides. Before submitting your concept, please review the online ISS National Lab Implementation Partners directory that is available on the ISS National Lab website. The website address for the implementation partners is shown on this slide. If you have questions about Step 1A concept submissions, please ask during this webinar's question and answer period, or you may email us at sustainability@issnationallab.org. That address is on the concept template for your convenience as well. The next scheduled milestone, Step 1B, is the submission and evaluation of a recorded video pitch and presentation. In developing your submission for Step 1B, please follow the provided instructions in the document titled Presentation Instructions and Evaluation Overview. Be sure to use the PowerPoint template that we've provided to create your presentation slides. In order to be accepted, your submission must consist of a maximum 5-minute recorded video of your pitch and a file containing your presentation slide, all submitted by the end of the day, February 14th. A judging panel will review and evaluate each submission to select a limited number of finalists for follow-up question and answer calls. During the first week of March, finalists will be notified of a date and time scheduled for their Q&A call. Q&A calls and evaluation is Step 1C. The Q&A calls are by invitation only. These calls will be held separately with each of the finalist teams on select days during the second week of March. Q&A calls will be 20 minutes and include a 5-minute viewing of the recorded pitch, followed by a short Q&A session with the judging panel. Once all Q&A calls are completed, the panel will deliberate and arrive at the final ranking of the finalists. The top 3 ranked finalists will be recognized during the pitch event on Saturday, March 19th. Lastly, let's briefly discuss the proposal process, or Step 2. The teams identified as finalists will be invited to submit a full proposal, 2 cases. Detailed submission instructions and evaluation criteria will be provided to all finalists. These instructions will include steps for helping you find an implementation partner. Selecting an implementation partner is necessary because part of the documentation that you will provide when you submit your full proposal is a scope of work and budget from the implementation partner. The proposal evaluation process and the valuation factors that we will use is all detailed in documents that will be made available for download when we get closer to this time of Step 2. In short, we can say there will be plenty of time between the pitch event and the proposal due date for selected finalists to prepare their proposal. For the Sustainability Challenge, up to $1 million is available to support one or more flight projects. The ultimate goal of the ISS National Lab activities is to bring value and impact back to the US economy and US taxpayers by benefiting life here on Earth. With that understanding, I want to emphasize two of the valuation factors for your concepts. First, the proposed solution must offer a pathway to benefit life back on Earth. The second is that the experiment takes advantage of the unique environment of the ISS, such as exploiting the microgravity conditions on board the ISS or the extreme space environment outside the ISS. The ISS National Lab offers state-of-the-art hardware and facilities, offering a wide range of research equipment and systems for doing R&D and technology demonstration in space. As you heard in this webinar, as well as in last week's webinar, there are implementation partner companies that help you translate your experiment from something that can be done in your lab to something that can be done in space. We encourage you to visit the implementation partner database and become familiar with the experience and capabilities of these implementation partners early in your concept development. This slide is a compact yet very detailed version of the schedule of milestones that I just reviewed. Since I've already reviewed these, I won't go through this, but I wanted to remind you that this infographic, if you haven't seen it already, is available on the Sustainability Challenge website. With that, I thank you very much for your time and interest in the Sustainability Challenge in partnership with Estee Lauder. We really believe the ISS serves as a one-of-a-kind facility for research exploration. Included in this slide are links to our website where you can find more information on things like ISS hardware and facilities, the implementation partner directory, and examples of projects that have already been conducted on station. You can reach out to us directly by email, again at sustainability@issnationallab.org. With any questions that you have. Please note that in submitting questions here today or by email, we will be posting those questions, minus any proprietary information, to the Sustainability Challenge website. So with that, we'll now be ready to take your questions. Please use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your webinar application screen to submit those questions. Back over to you, Christine.
Hi, let me know if you can hear me. It sounds like we were having sound problems. How's my sound? Can you hear okay? Okay, yes. That's super. I don't see any questions here at the moment, but thank you for that, Brian. One of the questions that I might ask you is, are there some commonly omitted things that then cause somebody's proposal to not be accepted?
Yeah, good question. Certainly during the concept phase, we take a high-level look at the proposal to make sure there's a couple of big things. First, as I indicated a moment ago, there really has to be a strong rationale for use of the ISS National Lab for doing your experiment in space versus, say, doing it in some kind of simulated microgravity condition on Earth. The second is it needs to fit in with the scope of the particular solicitation. In this case, that was why I reviewed the particular scientific scope that we were interested in for this Sustainability Challenge. And so projects that are within scope are the kind that we're basically looking for. And of course, we also look for work that is new, novel, scientifically is going to really create something new and beneficial that hasn't already been created or might be created very easily here on Earth.
And I think that one of the things that you've told us in the past is that the instructions really are very, very explicit. So people should follow the instructions as they're laid out in order to have the best option, best opportunity for their proposal to be accepted. So I'll remind people that those instructions are there for supporting you. So please do follow the instructions. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Charles asked how many proposals are expected to be funded. So are we doing one big one, or are we doing potentially several? Do you have an answer for that, Brian, or do you want me to cover that?
Well, I'll let you dovetail on my introduction is, of course, to remind that we have a limit right now, that $1 million not cost, but funding limit. And so that does impact how many proposals will ultimately get funded. It's hard to give a specific number because it really depends on what the price tag is for each individual proposal that we ultimately get.
Right. So good answer. It depends. We don't mean to be flip about that, but we're leaving room for people to put in a proposal that might take 2 flights or several phases to accomplish. So thanks for that, Brian. Lisa asks if NGOs such as citizen science associations are able to participate in this as a proposer of an idea. And I assume, yes, we take NGOs. So Lisa's certainly welcome to submit a proposal.
Yeah. I don't know if our compliance person, Ashley, is on. I'll defer to her to answer that question.
No, NGOs are acceptable. So I think that I actually had to step away. So I think that we're saying that, yes, NGOs are available. And Lisa, I would also suggest that there is a form that asks you if you want to join the kind of the community or the ecosystem. And that's another way that we might be able to match you up with potential partners for this. John Bush asks, if the initial concept paper, do we need a letter of support from an implementation partner that they plan to work with?
It's not necessary to have a letter of support, but it is recommended if that's something you can have. Certainly at the presentation stage, that would be useful to supplement with your pitch. So yeah, not necessary at the concept, but highly recommended for the step 1B, the presentation submission.
That's very fantastic. Thank you for that, Brian. Let's see. Somebody asked also here if, just as a reminder, where's the scoring rubric so that they understand the evaluation guidelines?
Right. So we simplified that in the sense of rather than providing the scoring rubric, which is kind of detailed, in the presentation instructions document, there's also the evaluation summary or overview. And so you will see in there within each of the sections, it'll describe the major factors that we are going to be evaluating the presentations. And then you also see certain sub-factors there. And at the end of each of those major evaluation categories, there's also an indication of the total percentage or weight of that factor. So you can get a sense from that, for example, of how much the motivation for your project is relative to, let's say, your concept of operation, and how much that weighs in or is compared to, let's say, the outcomes and benefits of your project. So that level, of detail, you should be able to define or describe very well in that presentation, instruction, and evaluation overview document.
And as you go along, remember that you can send us questions to inquiries at ISS National Lab. Sustainability at issnationallab.org. and we'd be happy to answer your questions. So sustainability@issnationallab.org, in case we didn't answer all your questions today. Kang Wu wants to know how much of the funding is budgeted for flights and how much is budgeted for groundwork. And I'll take a stab at that if you don't mind, Brian. Generally, the focus should be on flight and on orbit research, because that's kind of the focus here. If you do need some groundwork and you need some prep time and you need to put that into your project, please do include it. If you have external funding available to cover other costs, or if you're doing in-kind, you should add that into your worksheet for budget as well, because that's important for us to know too. Hope that helped to answer that question for you, Kang Wu. If you need me to clarify that more, just shoot me another question into the Q&A. Would like to showcase my, whoops, I missed something there. I thought I saw another one, but I guess not. Any other questions before we thank you, Kang Wu? I'm glad that we were pretty clear about that. Any other questions from the audience here? I want to make sure that we cover your questions while we have Brian here to answer them. All right. Remember, there was a prior webinar that was hosted by Dr. Ryan Reeves with some of the information about the type of work and information on the science behind this. You're welcome to catch that on the website and watch that first web if you have not. We also are happy to have you share this with friends and other potential participants. So please do share the links with them. And that might be all the questions that I have. Let me just take one last look here, if you guys don't mind. One second while I pull up the Q&A. We answered detailed scoring already. I think that's all the questions we have for now. And so I'm going to thank Brian for presenting all this information. It is available again on the web. Do send us questions if we haven't answered all of your questions today. And thank you. This has been recorded and will be posted. Brian, thanks again for your time.
Thank you, and thank everybody.